Hi, ladies. I'm Sue Kramer, and today I'm going to be talking to you about metabolic health. Okay, just a quick overall understanding of what it means and what it is. And we're just going to touch base on some things because I talk a lot about metabolic health, and it's extremely important. To me, it is the foundation of all health. And it's not just to me, trust me. They're finding that metabolic health is the key to figuring out if you're going to live long and stay healthy and avoid type 2 diabetes and many things that go along with it. So we're going to really just jump in today and talk about what that means. What is metabolic syndrome? What does it mean to be metabolically healthy? How is that different than just being thinner and losing weight, or being on a bunch of medications that help us stay or get healthier, which I guess I would question if that is true in the long run, because it seems like they focus on one part of our body and they give us a medication, and then that causes an issue in another part of our body. So we get another medication and a different doctor. And it's just this huge spiral that leaves us not feeling very good and not feeling very healthy. And all of a sudden we're on several medications. And so we're going to talk about metabolic health today. And in doing that, I am going to share my screen with you and show you some slides as we go along. So let's look at what is metabolic syndrome. Okay, the following are indications of metabolic syndrome, and the more of them that we see in a person, generally the more health issues that they have. Okay, the first one is waist circumference. If your waist is over 35 inches as a woman or 40 inches as a man, otherwise known as belly fat, excessive belly fat can be dangerous because it surrounds our internal organs and it puts us at a greater risk for developing several kinds of health problems, including heart disease, diabetes, and liver problems. So seeing that weight around the middle is an indication that something else is going on in the body, that the body is storing fat here around your organs, and we have to figure out how to not just cover that up with a medication, or but let's deal with what's really going on. So high blood pressure is the second thing. Standard blood pressure is 120 over 80, and this is a general range. And so that's kind of what we're looking at as, and much over that is going to be considered high blood pressure. All right, so that's a factor in metabolic syndrome. The third factor in metabolic syndrome is high triglyceride levels. Triglycerides are the amount of fat that is in your blood. So normal is 150 milligrams per deciliter or lower. Okay. Triglycerides are that type of fat or that lipid that is found in our blood. So when we eat, our body converts our calories that it doesn't need into triglycerides. So the triglycerides are actually stored in the fat cells, and later the hormones release triglycerides for energy in between meals. So we just don't want all that. If there's a lot of extra fat floating around in our blood, it's not good. And that's going to show up in a high triglyceride number when we get blood work done. Okay. So low HDL, or good cholesterol, is a concern. And that is one of the factors. Okay. So when you're good cholesterol, because cholesterol is a huge conversation. All right. And if you want to know more about cholesterol, or you're dealing with, like, you have concerns about cholesterol, let me know, and I will direct you in some information of doctors that I trust that really talk well about cholesterol issues. Because cholesterol is, I'm just going to real briefly touch on the fact that cholesterol is actually something that our body needs desperately. Our brains need cholesterol. Cholesterol is not a bad thing. Cholesterol in our blood and in our body, now there are a couple different kinds, but overall, we need cholesterol. If we don't have enough cholesterol, we get very, very sick. So cholesterol is kind of like if I had a crack in the wall and I brought some spackling and I spackled that wall up. What cholesterol is kind of like that spackling in our blood system. So damage happens to our arteries, and cholesterol is sent in there to repair and to spackle up the damage done to the walls of our artery. But over time, if our arteries keep getting damaged and there's more and more spackling that is coming, it's building up in those arterial walls, and it can build up in different, in our heart and different places. And then we hear about having a heart attack because our arteries were clogged. And then we blame the cholesterol because there's so much cholesterol clogging our arteries, when that cholesterol is actually coming in to fix the damage caused from a poor diet, a diet high in sugar, high in grains, high in carbohydrates. That all damages our arterial walls. High seed oils, those vegetable oils, soybean oils, rapeseed oil, all those kind of damaging seed oils cause havoc in our arteries and damage the walls of our arteries. So our body is sending in cholesterol to fix that repair. And what do? We go on a medication to lower our cholesterol, but we don't deal with what's actually causing the damage in the artery walls. So metabolic health is about focusing on healing the damage that's happening in our body, in our bloodstream, in our arteries, all those things. Okay. Cutting down on inflammation. Inflammation damages those walls. What causes inflammation? Sugar, carbs, grains. And again, when I say carbs, I'm always referring to processed food carbs. All right. I'm not referring to necessarily vegetable carbohydrates. So we want to focus on what is causing the damage to our body, what is causing the inflammation. All right. So then the fifth thing is high fasting glucose or blood sugar levels, which we're going to focus a lot on. A healthy normal fasting glucose level for someone without diabetes is 70 to 99 would be a good healthy fasting blood sugar level. 100 to 125 are going to be considered as pre-diabetic. Now that means I haven't eaten yet. I take my blood sugar. It's between 100 and 125. It's considered pre-diabetic. Nowadays, because of we've raised the levels of what's healthy, because so many people, because over 80% of Americans are metabolically unhealthy. Now they've raised that number even and said, oh, it's okay if you're over 125. It's not really. It's damaging your organs when you get over 100 as a fasting blood sugar level. If your fasted blood sugar level is higher than 126, really, you're probably dealing with type 2 diabetes. Okay. So to summarize that up, in general, but not exclusively, these symptoms are generally driven by chronically high insulin. Okay. Other factors can play a part in this. Genetics, a little bit, stress, sleep can definitely affect some of these. And we look for a cluster of all these symptoms to say that you have metabolic syndrome. Okay. But they say that genetics kind of loads the gun, but diet pulls the trigger. So what you're eating is really going to be the catalyst for metabolic syndrome more than, oh, it's just in my genes. Chances are what's in your genes is the pattern of lifestyle of eating. So this slide shows that studies have consistently found that high carbohydrate intake is associated with increased insulin levels, leading to insulin resistance in the cells and an increased prevalence of metabolic syndrome. You can clearly see on this slide that the association with carbohydrate intake definitely raised the level of metabolic syndrome. This was a study done on Korean women aged 40 to 69. And it was just an incredibly, really well done study that shows you the absolute correlation between metabolic syndrome and the amount of carbohydrate intake that these women had. Okay. So if you look at this graph, you see that the rise in obesity and type 2 diabetes, and I would say metabolic syndrome, definitely correlated with the current food pyramid that was adapted back in just before the 80s. All right. With lots of grains recommended in our diet. And then it said, use your fat sparingly, which I just talked to you about seed oils and those kind of fats. We don't want those in our diet, but what we do want are healthy fats. We want healthy fats from animal products or coconut oil or olive oil. Those are all good, okay? Butter is a good healthy fat. So those are things we want to focus on. Next, let's look at this. This shows you what happens between high carbohydrate eating and low carbohydrate eating, which is technically ketogenic. Again, we want to be careful. This is not just a fad keto diet. This is a ketogenic way of eating. All right. On the high carbs, when we eat foods with high carbohydrates, our glucose levels rise. All right. The next one over, our pancreas then secretes insulin, which helps move the blood into the cells, or move the glucose into the cells, into the blood cells. And then we burn glucose for energy. Now, when our cells become overloaded with insulin, they become what is called, you've probably heard of, as insulin resistance. And that starts to lead to health problems because it starts to build inflammation in our body. It leads to type 2 diabetes. It leads to metabolic syndrome and weight gain, of course, because it doesn't have anywhere to go. It shoves it all in the fat cells and it just keeps storing fat then, okay? Then the chart for the ketogenic or the low carb eating is when we limit our carbohydrate intake and instead we focus on eating proteins and fats. So our glucose levels don't rise substantially in the presence of sugar and glucose in our body. So our body finds an alternative fuel source. The liver produces ketones and then the body burns fat. And the brain uses those ketones for energy. As that happens, the body starts burning fat and we start losing weight. Number one, it starts burning all that fat. And then inflammation goes down, fatty liver reverses. Fatty liver disease, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is growing at an exponential rate right now in adults and in children. It is just heart-wrenching to think of the kids that are dealing with non-alcoholic fatty liver disease now. So when we eat a low carb diet or a ketogenic style diet, getting the sugars and the grains out of our what we eat, like I said, inflammation goes down, disease goes down, because at the core of all disease is inflammation in our body somewhere. And then we start reversing pre or type 2 diabetes. So that is kind of a quick summary of what a ketogenic diet is. I am going to focus, I'm going to get back on, somehow, I'm going to close this down in a minute. And we're going to focus on eating better, not perfect. All right. I'm trying to get back to my, there it is. Stop the sharing. So we are going to focus in this group on eating better, not perfect, not worrying about making a little mistake here and there or a misstep. But if you are focusing on low carb and sugar-free, then that is going to be the best thing you can possibly do for yourself. That is going to help you have longevity. It is going to reduce inflammation. You are going to feel better. Bloating is going to go down. You're going to start losing weight, all of these things. So I just want you to focus on this. And now that you understand a little more about metabolic dysfunction, metabolic syndrome, and metabolic health, let's get metabolically healthy. It is the core of all health. And remember that every decision you make regarding the foods and the drink that you put in your mouth is a vote for either sickness or health. Okay? It's a vote for either living poorly or living well. And I really want to help you live well. So let's do this. All right. Feel free to throw comments, questions down in there if you have questions about metabolic health, but I wanted to throw this out there so you had time to watch it. So when I refer to metabolic health, this is what I'm referring to. And this is why we're doing this. It's to get healthy and it's to feel better. It's to live well. All right. Have a great day. Thanks. Bye, ladies.